This is the Mind Eraser, Mike Graça, and you're checking out the 3 Count Podcast. If they die, they die.
Do you wanna get live with me? Do you really wanna ride with me? I'm in the club, baby, grind on me.
Welcome everyone to another great edition of the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you out that mountain called wrestling. And by now, with this being season 5 and our 380 something episode, I would just hope you say it with me. I am your Sherpa, because like your tribal chief, acknowledge me. But like every good Sherpa, you gotta have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficiently than you can. So it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. So who's entering the ring? You can find this person at NRG. You can find him at Fight Live. You can find him at Focus Pro, PGRWA. He will take you off your feet. He will bend your will to his. He is the Mind Eraser, Mike Graça.
How's it going?
What up, man?
Thank you for having me.
Hell yeah. So we met at Focus Pro. We initially were supposed to be in a match together. But then card subject to change like it is most of the time. Things got changed. But you and I sat down, we had a conversation, and a conversation I felt was like flowing really well. And I was like, bro, like let's bring you on the podcast, let's have some fun, let's talk about some stuff and just kick it.
Yeah. I'm all for it. I don't do this very often, so
Winner, that's right. Like you just win people over little by little. It's funny though because like I've had so like I said, this is like season 5. We've had over 380 some episodes, and I've had people that were like, I don't even do podcasts, and then they come on and we have like this fun ass conversation. So I'm very grateful that we were able to sit in the back and then just enjoy what we just a small convo. But like, so you've been doing this for a while, and the one thing that I was kind of curious about, right, is like you and I shared, we talked about like the different masks and stuff like that we wear and stuff like that. Like, what is there a thing that causes you to be like, I want to be in this mood, so I'll wear this mask, or do you just wing it?
I mean that depends on how I'm feeling that day. If I'm feeling creative, then I'll think, well, I should wear this one or the other. But it's usually whichever one I put in my bag that day. If I have a couple in the bag that day, then I'll tell my fiance Katie to be like, hey, pick one, and I'll wear it.
Nice.
But my most popular one is the I have.
Yeah, I like that one a lot too. I ain't gonna front. And it's funny because like for me, like I've always thought about like the evolution of Red Dog and where he would go and what he would do and stuff like that. And I know like when I first started, like I didn't have a mask with me, so it was just me just kind of coming with a lot of energy. And then one night I was in Pennsylvania, and my trainer was like, "Hey, I bought this mask. It looks cool on me, but I want you to see it on you real quick." And I just happened to be wearing like my military gear, and like I put it all together, and it shot off, and I was like, "Yeah, this is the look." Like, I'm sorry, bro, you're not getting this back. And then I thought about like, yo, I'd like to like evolve this, so I got a bunch of other ones masks. So I have like I have a bougie one that's like looks like it's fake alligator skin. I don't know how the dude came up with it, but he did. And then I have like a pure red one. I have a pure black one, and then I have a new one that has like the what do you call it, airsoft, and then on top of it has like a bunch of teeth. And I'm like, yo, I'd like this mask too. But yeah, it also depends on me. Like I'm like, if I'm trying to like, if I want to get nitty gritty and just like show like Red Dog has like a real bite to him, like I'll usually wear like my military gear with like the real teeth one. And then if I feel like I'm just gonna be like a complete goofball and want to be bougie as shit, like I'll just wear like shorts, like short gear, and then I'll wear like the bougie mask and just go with it. So I try to play off like whatever mood I'm in like that afternoon before I do anything.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. I mean, all my masks portray humans. They all give off the same vibe, so it just whatever design I feel like wearing that day.
I like it. But yo, aside from talking about masks, man, who's Mike Graça?
Like the person? I'd say I'm just a humble, quiet kid. Sorry about that. But I'm just a quiet kid from Rhode Island who grew up in Cranston. Always loved wrestling. I grew up in a very heavily Portuguese household. I didn't learn English till I was like 5. Um, yeah, I grew up with a love for wrestling, soccer. Those are my two favorite things in the whole world. Uh, I was kind of like an angry kid, so my counselor suggested I play football. So I played football for about 10 years, uh, and that led me to wrestling. I forged my dad's signature on the waiver when I was 17, and the rest was history from there. Yeah.
Like that. I know, like for me, like when I was growing up, like I got infatuated with wrestling, and then my dad had a friend that really loved wrestling too, so he kind of took me over to his house, and we would watch like the pay per views and stuff like that. And I remember like I told my dad that I wanted to get into wrestling, and he put me into amateur wrestling, and so I did amateur wrestling for like 10 years, and I went from like sixth grade all the way until like my sophomore year of college. And I was like, as much as I love this type of wrestling, this isn't the wrestling I want to be doing. And like, I kind of had to get away from it. So I ended up going to like the military and then kind of traveling around and trying to figure stuff out. And then once I got, once I found my way back to wrestling, like I was like, there's no way that I'm not taking this opportunity to like enjoy what it is. And it was funny. So I get in and like, it was like my first year in, and I don't think I've ever told people this on this show. So you get to be kind of like the first one I talk about with. But my grandfather on my dad's side um, was being convinced to become a pro wrestler as well. And he was like this shorter, kind of fatter dude. And his name was Wes, but they wanted to name him the Great Buddha, the Great White Buddha, and out of Kansas City. And I was like, this is so crazy that here's this guy that I know for so like I knew about him for a long time. I only knew really for a couple years. No, it's just some other things that happened. But to find out that he was supposed to be also being a pro wrestler, my dad was like, yeah, I just think like you've always had that bug in you and you've always wanted to do something like this.
That's really cool. My dad is a referee, and when I started in 2011, he wanted to keep an eye on me, so he joined in as well, started training. He had a few matches, was my manager for a little while, and he fell in love with it just as much as I did, and he hasn't stopped. He took a little bit of a break because he's an old man. You know, I tease him all the time. He had to take a break because he had nerve damage in his neck and shoulder and whatnot, but he came back I think a couple of years ago and hasn't stopped. So
Nice. And that's what I think is so cool about pro wrestling is like as you and we'll say what it is, as you age out, right? Like there's always something there for like wrestling. Like we were talking about in the back, like I'm for you guys who don't know, you guys will find out soon. I think when this episode comes out, I'll have already turned 39. So, happy birthday to you. Uh, but so it's like I got in like at the elder part of the stage, but I still like am like very active. But I definitely know like, hey, there's gonna be a time where I'm gonna transition from not just even like being a part-time wrestler, but just doing something else in the
yeah,
business, whether it's this podcast or it's something else. I don't know what it is, but it'll be something that I will definitely enjoy editing videos. I like doing that. I found that out randomly. Like, yeah, we find something new.
there's a niche for everybody. I mean, I personally I took over Wednesday nights at the Gladiator Training Academy in New Bedford. That's NRG. It's their school, so I started running classes on Wednesdays there. The other trainer is BMT, Brandon Michael Thomas. He runs Mondays. I run Wednesdays, and we're trying to change the perception of this area. You know what I mean? And make machines. You know what I mean? That's what we want to do. We want to make pro wrestling machines over here.
Yeah, and I think what it is too, like what I love about pro wrestling, especially when it comes to training and stuff like that, like I've talked about it a couple times with some other people, but like you learn your basics and then you get really good at your basics.
Mm.
But something that I noticed about guys that were like at Japan, there's a couple dudes who are wrestling now at New Japan that started in the dojo, worked their way up, right? got a couple matches, so they learned their basics in Japan, moved to Mexico, learned the basics
Mhm.
in in Mexico, and then moved to the US, learned the basics in the US. They spent like 4 months here, and then they spent another 4 months in Europe and learned the basics in like England and Germany, and then went back to Japan, and they had a well-rounded understanding of wrestling around the world, and they are fire now, like in Japan. And it's so cool to think about, like, every place has their own way of doing things, but like at the end of the day, we're pretty much known for what we know in like the business, right? So I'll use this for an instance, right? For like the US, we really, our basics are lockups, bumps, right? Know your bumps, and then like usually it's like a slam, right? A body slam is really kind of like the basic clothesline, like just learning how to bump on contact. But like some of these other places, man, like I love watching British wrestling because you see like some amazing technical work that gets tied into the stories. I'm like, damn. So it was cool to see like you learn these basics and then you can branch out from there and figure out moves just as long as you know how to control your opponent safely. But yeah, no, I always find it interesting.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I personally haven't been off of this rock, this continent, so I would like to do Europe at least once before I'm done. Um, I give myself maybe, if I keep going the way that I'm going, I can go another maybe like 10 years. So I'll stop when I'm like 42, 43. That's what I'm shooting for. I don't want to go past that because got kid at home. He likes going to wrestling shows and stuff like that, and I'm sure once he gets a little bit older, be able to tell his friends and stuff, hey, and they can come to shows as well. But I want to be still walking when I can actually enjoy more time with him. Because right now my weekends are straight wrestling from Friday to Sunday usually.
Yeah. I think about it too, where like for me, like I'm the father of a 14-year-old, well, 13-year-old. She turned 14 next year. But it's like to me, it's like, yo, I don't want to spend a lot of time away from her, but I do enjoy what I enjoy. So I may not go like a Friday through Saturday type routine or Friday through Sunday routine, but you'll catch me like most Saturdays. I'm usually doing something unless like it's really I'm like, hey, you know what? Like it's all about her, and I'll just stop, and then we're just gonna spend time with her. And I think about those things a lot. Where like I know like I'm getting older, so for me, I gave myself like a 10-year window from like 34 to 44. Like I'm gonna enjoy this, and then like then I'll hang it up, right? And it might be sooner than that. Who knows? But I definitely wanted the idea that hey, like I want my kid to know like hey, like no matter like how old you get, you can always go do what it is that you're trying to do. And yeah, so one of my best friends who recently it sounds weird when I say this, I celebrated his death anniversary, if that makes sense. Like,
And
it's
then
been 4 years. It sounds very morbid like that. But yeah, so I celebrated and I thought about all the things that like I had been doing in life, like compared to what he was doing, right? So I openly joke with my boy, he even though he's no longer with us, but Joseph, he was one of my best friends ever. And I always joked with him that his best 4 years of school was eighth grade because he repeated it so many times. And so he he eventually like dropped out, but the one things that he always set for himself, he's like, "Yo, I want to either be a famous rapper or I want to be in the military or I want to be a pro wrestler." Like those were the three things that he thought about all the time. And like he and I recorded like a bunch of rap albums. Yes, you can find them. But we recorded like a bunch of rap singles, and some of them were god awful. Some of them might be passable. I don't know. But then like I joined the military and then I, became a pro wrestler and I do these things because of him. And it's just so cool. And I thought about this back and I was like, man, I was like, I know this dude's gonna be down there proud of or up there proud of me. And I talk to his kids all the time. I'm like, bro, like this was your dad, bro. Like I'm just doing the shit that he wanted to do. And I'm just gonna push and push and push until like I can't do it no more. And then once I can't, then we'll find something new. But yeah, I think about those things all the time, man. It's just the way that affects the heart and how the sport like brings people so close from different worlds of just like
my God, yeah.
all the backgrounds.
Uh, I can't like I don't really have friends outside of wrestling. I've been doing this since I was 17. I don't really, that's all I know. I don't have, my whole adult life has been dedicated to this. So it's, I've met so many people. I got to hang out with people who I used to watch on TV as a kid, and it's just, it's afforded me a lot of cool things and experiences, and I owe like pretty much everything. I owe wrestling meeting my fiance, my the life that I have now. Basically, it's nuts. It's nuts.
All right, let me ask you this question. What was your surreal moment when you were just like, whoa, like what is life right now? Like your first surreal moment in like pro wrestling.
My first one, okay. I would say my first one was probably like 2013. I was on a show and I got to team with Gilbert,
Nice.
and I got to wrestle one of my trainers at the time, and it was I was like, "What is life right now?" He came out with sparklers and everything. It was nuts. It was nuts for me.
I love Dwayne. He's like one of my favorite people in the entire world. Like I'm couldn't even front. Like just an absolute joy to be around. Especially the first time I met him, I asked him to do a video for me for my daughter because it was her birthday the next day, and he did. And he, if there's one thing I can say about Gilbert is that he loves doing his job for kids because he knows how much joy it brings them. So it's so much fun to just see him like always like that.
Yeah,
Look when he does it.
yeah,
He's just so genuine and so fun. I'm like, there's no one better in the world than Gilbert himself.
yeah. I mean, I've had a few of those moments. Like I'm very fortunate to be in like the right place at the right time. Sometimes I have a couple of like crazy stories too about, but that that talk about that in a little bit. But I've shared the ring with people like Tony Atlas,
Mm,
Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Gilbert. Um, I've actually become very good friends with Paul London. I've worked with him a couple of times. I've hung out with people like Chris Hero, Johnny Gargano, like just literally sat with them and picked their brains, shared car rides with them, and I'm like I said, I'm very fortunate to just be like, I'm a kid. I'm like 19, 20 years old. I'm just gonna hop in a car, and even if I don't get on the show, I can literally sit and talk to these people, and it's I was very lucky, very lucky at that time.
no, that's awesome though, especially when you come to understand like those moments that to you is like a bit like, and I don't want to demeanor right from what they're saying. Like their side is just like there's another person who's in the car wanting to learn. To you, it's like this giant where you're like, oh my god, I'm in a car
Yeah,
with Johnny Gargano right now. And then even when you look at it now, you're like, I was in a car with Johnny Gargano, and like you're just this well, like the speck, like
yeah,
on a radar. Right? Now you're like, oh my god, brother. So I could definitely understand like that moment. I remember like I was at this show in New Jersey and my trainer came to me and he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna bring you to the back. Just chill out. You know, just don't worry about anything." So he brings me to the back and he walks up to me. He walks me up and he's like, "Hey, Sandman, this is my one of my students. Good kid. He's just fun with me. And I went and shook his hand and talked to him. And then his tag partner, Nick Sicken's tag partner was like, what's your name, bro?" And I was like, well, they call me Red Dog. And he's like, "Why?" And I was like, "'Cause my first name's Clifford." And Sandman was like, "Oh my god!" It's like, and we have this full conversation. I'm like having a conversation with Sandman, and I'm like, what is life? What is this moment that's happening right now? It's like I watched you at ECW for so many years, man. Like it's blowing my mind. So I definitely I can understand like the holy shit moment that like whoa, this is crazy. Dog, let me ask you something though. Because like you said earlier, right? You're a friend. You're a friend of this. You love this. You love wrestling. You've been around it your whole life.
Yeah.
But what was that moment that you were? Was there like a moment that you just something clicked and you're like, "Yo, let me get into this business." Outside of forging your dad's signature.
To make me actually make the move.
Yeah.
So in high school, I met somebody and he was like, "Oh, I see that," because I used to be in video production class and I used to do instructional videos. And I used to go on YouTube and watch like how to do a suplex or how to do stuff like that. So I basically copied those videos, but in like the downstairs like wrestling dungeon in my high school. And me and my friend would just mess around, and we've also filmed matches as well down there, like on school time and stuff like that. So got in a little bit of trouble for that, but I met somebody who saw that we were doing that, and he was like, I run a wrestling promotion. And I was like, what, you do? You go to school here? And he's like, yeah. We just run out of my backyard. I was like, oh, backyard wrestling? Okay, cool. So I started backyard wrestling for this guy. His name's Devin Biondi. He's a really good dude. He also wrestled for a little while too. But my first show with him, uh, a bunch of people from RWA were there, just happened to be there. And I met T Phoenix. I met this guy, Jimmy Hansen, and a couple of other people that were running RWA. And they said, you should come train. And that was the moment where I was like, backyard, you can go over there. I'm going to go train guys. I brought that to the attention of my parents. My parents like, nah, you're about to start about to graduate high school and go to college. I don't think you should be focusing, like, putting your focus in that instead of on like school and moving forward with life. And I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna take the car and go hang out with my friends. So I took the car and I went straight to training in North Providence, Rhode Island, and like I say, the rest is history from there.
Yeah, that's kind of lit though. I
Yeah.
know it's trippy though whenever you like take that first initial bump in a ring. I remember
Yeah.
like the first bump I took, man, it's funny because like I think it's somewhere on the internet. I did a blog about it where I took my first bump and I was like, I felt like I was in a car crash and like everything went like I got pushed over somebody to take my first bump and like I was like, whoa. And my friends were like, are you okay? I was like, yo, I'm great. Can we do it again? It was like the most exhilarating moment for me. It was like I want to keep doing this thing. You just want to keep bumping on a ring and just like learning. And then when I went and started getting trained, my trainer was like, "Oh, you know some things." I was like, "Nah, bro. Like I know. I'm the day oneer. Just teach me the basics, and we'll just go from there." And he's like, "Okay, sure." And so just sort of learning the bumps and stuff like that. And oh man, I remember there's this dude who worked at ACW. His name's King Kamari. I was working at a backyard show, and he's like, "Hey, you got something here, bro. Like, you're either gonna make this jump or you're not. So figure it out." And he's like, "And if you do, I'll see you on the other side." And so, sure enough, I sent a message to the guy who'd be my trainer. His name was Sicken. I sent him a message. It's like, "Yo, just want to start training. I want to be up there in January if everything's cool, and then I'm just gonna go from there." And he's like, "Yeah, okay." So January showed up, had my daughter with me, and at the time she was just, I think she was just, let's see, I've been doing this 4, so yeah, she was just turning 8, like just doing the card. Went to his house. It was fucking like 30 degrees outside and just taking bumps on a cold ring. But I was happy because I was like, I'm training. I'm actually doing it. Yo, uh, speaking of bumps, what's the worst bump you've taken?
I've had a few doozies. The worst bump that I've taken that probably lasted a long time It was actually this year. I was wrestling for Fight Life, and I was doing a last man standing match with Lucas Chase, and my dumbass was like, "Oh, I'm gonna, yeah, I'll take a body slam on thumbtacks on concrete."
Oh no.
Yeah, so yeah, I felt that. I had to get freaking stitches in my elbow, and then this elbow, I didn't need stitches, but I should have got stitches. And this one, for like weeks, I had bursitis and stuff, so it was all swollen and fluid was bursting out of the cut that I had over here. It was crazy. It shot all over my window, or it was crazy.
I'm sure like most of our people who just like watching this is just like, oh no, thumbtacks on concrete? Like no.
Yeah, yeah,
Brutal.
yeah. I've done.
uh you've been doing this for a while, like you said, and I'm just curious. I know everybody has one of these too, but what's one of the hardest lessons you've had to learn?
uh, I'd probably say that not to judge people that take this as like their hobby. Because I've dedicated, like I said, my whole life to it, and I honestly, I do take it pretty seriously. And it took me a long time to realize that there are people that literally are content with just doing this wrestling once or twice a month and doing this as a hobby, and they don't take it as seriously as I do, so they don't put that effort in, I guess. But it took me a while to be like, okay, that's okay. Like it's all right for people to think that way and go about wrestling in that manner. And like I said, I used to take offense to that, and it wasn't healthy, a healthy way of thinking. So I guess that was a really hard lesson that I had to learn. And because I've always been quiet, I never really talk crap about anybody. So I've always been the type of person that would sit and not speak unless I was spoken to. So I never really got in trouble for my mouth or anything like that. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that was the one thing my trainer like we talked about it like right off the rip. Like, bro, you have two eyes, two ears, and one mouth. So four things need to stay open and one needs to stay closed. And let me be real with you. The thing that needs to stay closed is right here. So he's like, just keep that mouth shut and just take notes or just take mental notes and write them down later. And I was very appreciative, like he said that right off the rip, because I started like really thinking about those things and taking them to heart and understanding like what he was talking about. And the funny thing is this podcast, fortunately for me, has like brought new things to me where like, I had a person on here my first year, and he was like, as a beginner, you should have a sponge in your suitcase. And I thought that was a weird thing to say, right? But then he explained, he was like, the reason why you have a sponge in your suitcase is to remember that you're always there to soak up knowledge.
Mm.
And to this day, actually currently in my bag right now, there is a sponge still in my bag because it still reminds me that, oh yeah, I'm here because I'm still learning, I'm still growing and still like understanding this crazy thing called this wrestling business. Um, but it's fun, and that's all I have to remind myself is that one, you got to end this old, so you don't have to do a lot of crazy things. You can just have fun doing the things that you're doing, and you know, as long as you're doing them safely and you're learning lessons, who really cares? You're gonna get where you got to get to.
I mean, yeah. Once you feel like you've learned everything that you need to learn, you should just get out of it. Like I'm still learning to this day, and that's all. That's really all I have to say on that. Like, if you feel like you are done learning, stop. That's it.
Yeah. There's like so funny enough, underneath me is this book called Be Like Water, or Be Water, My Friend, by Bruce Lee, as read by Shannon Lee. But in there, she talks about two kung fu masters that are talking, and one kung fu master asked the other kung fu master for advice, right? To show him around is what he did. And so he sees that they do one things one way. He's like, yo, we do that. He's like, we do things this way. He just like, we do that. So eventually they start sitting down. He's like, well, let me just give you some tea. So he's like, okay. So the older master starts filling up the younger master's cup with tea, and he overfills it. And the younger master's like, yo, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. He's like, no, no, no. He's like, how are you going to willing to take on my knowledge is if you think you know everything.
Mhm.
And it's such a cool lesson to me too, where I'm like, every time I do this podcast, I brain dump everything that I know because you never know what lessons you're going to learn from somebody. And I always think about those things in life. Like someone's always going to teach you something that you're never going to expect. Like
Oh yeah.
there are people out there who like, I forget what comedian was talking about it, but he's like, I learned lesson. Oh no, it's Cat Williams. That's who it was who said I learned a lesson from Flavor Flav. And he's like, that's not a person that I would ever expect to learn a lesson from. And what he taught me was it doesn't matter what people think as long as you're making your money. And I was like, I mean, that's a good lesson to learn. I was like, I'm not gonna say it's the best lesson, but I understand like where you're coming from. But no, but yeah, let me hop into this. My favorite part of the 3 Count podcast. It's really simple. It is a 3 Count podcast, 10 count questions, and Mr. Graça, that's how it works. I'm gonna fire off 10 questions at you, rapid fast, and whatever your answer is, that's your answer.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Well, we're gonna put on the imaginary timer for added pressure. Bing! And in the words of my favorite commentator, Mike Goldberg, here we go. SmackDown or Raw?
Yeah. 2003 to like 2005. SmackDown.
Bad. Favorite movie?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Let's go. Are we talking the original or are we talking one with Jessica Biel?
Original.
Let's go. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
I like it. Favorite TV show?
Of all time, I'd probably say The Office.
Let's go. Waffles or pancakes?
I'm a waffle guy.
Let's go. Favorite cartoon?
Favorite cartoon? I'd probably say Ed and Eddie. When I was growing up, I love that show so much.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because like someone just sent me. I know it's old, but I love it. It's an animation of Ed singing. I forgot what song he was singing, but he's like singing the song. He's just like banging his face to the drum beat.
Yeah.
While like the other side of him is singing. I'm trying to remember. I'll think about it later, and you guys all know because you're probably looking it up right now anyway. Apple or Android?
I have an iPhone currently. I'm actually filming this on that.
Favorite podcast?
Favorite podcast? Honestly, don't listen to many, but there is this murder podcast that I watch pretty often. And it's the only one that I really watch. It's actually Bailey Sarian. I don't know if you know who that is.
I know the name.
She does like videos as well. She does like makeup tutorials as well as tells like a murder case basically.
Yo. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to dig this. You might have to send me that one. I'm gonna have to check this out. Nominate one person that you want to see on this podcast.
Stephen Lust. I would like to see you interview Stephen Lust. I don't know if you know who that is, but
Stephen Lust. Yeah, actually, I worked Stephen Lust in Springfield, Massachusetts last year.
Yeah,
and I'm definitely down for bringing him on.
He's a great guy. One of my actual best friends. So,
and then last but not least, my favorite question to ask every single person who comes on this podcast: favorite curse word?
I say fucking hell all the time.
I like. So normally some people would just be like, "Yo, fuck" is one, but I love the fact that you have fucking hell as one of your favorites. That's awesome.
I say
Bet. Well, hey, so the last thing I'm gonna have you do before we sign off, right, is I want you to tell all of our listeners and our viewers where they can find you.
All right. So this weekend, August 17th, I have Proving Ground. The name of the show is Dead Man Walking, and I am in the main event versus BMT in a casket match. Sunday, I'm going to be at Pioneer Valley Pro Wrestling in East Hampton, Massachusetts. I'm in a triple threat with Jermaine Marbury and DJ Powers. Next week, what is it, the 24th? Oh yeah, I'm in a steel cage match with Mortar for the NRG heavyweight title. And I think that's pretty much it for this month. I know I have a couple of like private shows that are at like a campground and whatnot, but for this month, that's what I have left. I know September it's filling up pretty quick, so just be on the lookout for my social media, I guess. Yeah.
There you go. And where can I find you on social media?
At Mind Eraser MG on everything, Twitter, Instagram, whatever.
That's the best when you put all your handles as one, and then you find them everywhere as one. I love it. It's my favorite.
Awesome. Nobody has that name.
Bet. Well, he told you where you can find him. He gave you all of his dates. He even told you about like some of the shows that he has going on, or they've already gone on. I'm not quite sure when this episode came out, so there's that. You can always go on YouTube, find all the videos too if you want to go watch his matches, because you should. But like every great part of a wrestling match, we got to take this home, because this is the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up that mountain called wrestling. And, like I said, as a good Sherpa, it's never about me. It's about who's entering. So who's entering? You see him right there, Mike Graça himself. So you guys know what to do. Tune in to the next episode and be there, or you're legitimately following us on all of our social media platforms. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel. You're listening to us on Spotify. You're even checking us out on Amazon Music. You're even listening to us on that one app with the dumb jingle that goes iHeartRadio or whatever it is that goes like. You're checking all of our merch on froyourwear.com. You're even checking us out on merch on prowrestlingtees.com. You're telling your mom about us, your dad about us, your aunties, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your best friends, and your enemies, because we love haters too. You're doing all that stuff, or really you're just kind of waiting for this episode to end. You're waiting for the outro, and then you're choosing another episode to listen to. Kawaii. What's going on? It is Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up that mountain called wrestling. And what we need from you guys is to kind of show some support, right? We want you guys to go to our YouTube channel at the 3 Count Podcast, go on to our Twitch channel, 3 Count Pod, or even our Facebook page, 3 Count Podcast, and just give us a like, follow, subscribe, even give us a comment, right? Do all that cool stuff. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your enemies, right? Or you can even come talk to us and just chat us up, right? Find us on Twitter at 3count_pod. Find us on IG and on TikTok at 3 Count Pod. Go ahead and leave us those comments. We want to hear from all of you guys. We're going to keep putting on videos and stuff like that. We want to keep making this content better, so we want your guys' support. Also, if you guys want to, go support us at prowrestlingtees.com/the 3 Count Podcast, or even find us on foryourwear.com. Give us the support. Show us your guys' love, because we want to give it right back to y'all. So, in the meantime, love y'all.